a lot of us know about, at least we've heard about menopause. We know it will come, the big change.
Yes.
But we don't talk about it.
Right.
But there's something, and also nothing is ever talked about after menopause either, post-menopause.
Post-menopause.
No one talks about it. It's like you just fade
Yeah.
into oblivion as a woman and nobody talks about it anymore. But in the last couple of years, there's a conversation that has begun that all of us are shocked and surprised, including me, because I fall in this category.
Yeah.
Perimenopause. What is perimenopause?
I know a lot of people don't know the word, right? It's only now surfacing. So perimenopause, peri, the word means on or around the time. It's the time leading up to menopause. And they've shown in research and scientific research that it can last anywhere from 2 to 10 years.
Hello. Welcome to the Lioness Grotto podcast. My name is Anna Njoroge. In this podcast, we talk all things women's health, wellness, money, fashion, beauty, entrepreneurship, and life as you navigate life as a Black woman to be limitless. We share, we encourage, we motivate. I'm a firm believer you don't have to go through every experience in life to learn. So if we can learn from each other, why not? In today's episode, we discuss all things women's health, perimenopause, menopause, and post-menopause. Ladies, I actually know some of you have already asked about this episode. What is going on with our bodies? And today, the amazing, beautiful Amina Farah of Fab-u-las Living, yes, fabulous, will be joining us to talk about this perimenopause, menopause, post-menopause. What are we supposed to do? What is going on with our bodies, Amina? Please tell us who you are and how you kind of started on this journey to discover and tell us what we need to do and educate us.
Hi, Anna. Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. So I have a menopause knowledge and awareness platform called Fab-u-las Living, and it's FAB-U-LAS. Fab-u-las.
Yes,
my own peculiar spelling of fabulous, which is really just celebrating that fab woman in you. It's what it represents. My knowledge and awareness platform is really to amplify the conversation around this natural transition that all women are going to go through if we live long enough, and to end menopause shame and menopause suffering. Right. Because I found that there is stigma around this conversation. There's like the cultural taboo around talking about menopause. And then there is also this avoidance because women have to admit that they're aging.
Yes, and that's apparently a bad thing.
Apparently.
Or we've been socialized to think it's a bad thing.
Correct. And also Fab-u-las Living is about positive aging. And of course, as you know, you are in my campaign.
Yes.
We did a wonderful campaign called Fab-u-las at Any Age. And Anna was one of the 30 women. And it was an opportunity to just celebrate women between the ages of 44 and 65, showcasing women who are comfortable in their skin, in their achievements, or different journeys. And we also had conversations about perimenopause and menopause. So I think this is just the time to start talking about it in our society, in African society, in our neighborhood, with our friends, with our families, with our mothers, our grandmothers, our sisters, our aunties, because there are a lot of gifts that we can get from that conversation. I know this is the month of love. We're taping this in the month of love. I'm not sure that it's going to actually be
Probably in March, which will be
Women's Month.
Yeah.
The International Month of Women. But I think that, the conversation really should be happening with women asking their mothers, what was your menopause journey? Instead of just allowing it to be something to be dismissed, because it could be a gift that you get from your mother.
Yep.
And I remember we did one conversation, and Wambui Chege, who was in the campaign, shared how she had the conversation with her mother, and then she lost her mother shortly after that. And it was a gift for her to understand her mother's journey. Because when we understand what our mothers go through, then we kind of have an idea of our journey. It doesn't mean it's going to be identical, but there tends to be some similarities. Yeah, like a lot of similarities.
And I remember after that recording that we did for Fabulous Women, I
Yes.
went home to Nakuru, and it challenged me because I had never had this conversation with my mother.
Yeah.
And it was my mother and her sister, way younger sister. So my mom is in her 70s. Her sister is in her early 50s.
Okay.
And I remember bringing it up. It wasn't let's have a conversation. I was having a hot flash. And I remember I was in the kitchen and I was wearing a sweatshirt and I removed it and I said, oh my God, I'm so hot. I'm having a hot flash. And they both looked at me and went quiet. Nothing. Crickets. And that nervous laugh and nothing. Neither one of them. And I definitely know, of course, my mother is in her 70s. She's gone through menopause.
Yeah.
So we are not having this conversation.
Yeah.
So a lot of us know about, at least we've heard about menopause. We know it will come, the big change,
Yes.
but we don't talk about it. But there's something, and also nothing is ever talked about after menopause either, post-menopause.
Post-menopause.
No one talks about it's like you just fade
Yeah.
into oblivion as a woman and nobody talks about it anymore. But in the last couple of years, there's a conversation that has begun that all of us are shocked and surprised, including me, because I fall in this category.
Yeah.
Perimenopause. What is perimenopause?
I know a lot of people don't know the word, right? It's only now surfacing. So perimenopause, peri, the word means on or around the time. It's the time leading up to menopause. And they've shown in research and scientific research that it can last anywhere from 2 to 10 years. Okay. And now they're even saying up to 14 years.
Up to 14.
It could even be up to 14. This is now a new statistic I heard recently, excuse me, from Dr. Mary Claire, who's a very famous doctor who talks a lot about menopause. And she said it could even be up to 14 years. So the period leading up to menopause is perimenopause. It can start in your 30s or your early 40s, and it could last up to a decade of your life. And what's happening during this period is the transition when we're going through the hormonal changes. So we start to lose estrogen in our bodies, and then progesterone and testosterone. So those are the 3 sex hormones all women have. Estrogen or estrogen, same word, potatoes, right? Is like the master hormone of women. It's like the magic. It's kind of what makes us women.
Exactly. Yes.
From our skin, it's, for our reproductive health,
Basically everything.
everything. Like we're like walking estrogen, right? And then we start to lose it, and it affects how we start to age. I mean, we're always aging. I always say this when people
The minute you're born,
you start aging.
Yep.
But then there's this different aging that happens when you start losing estrogen, right? And then in addition to the loss of estrogen, you're also losing progesterone. And then eventually, after a period of time, you also start losing testosterone. And yes, testosterone is also important for women. It's not only, it's the main hormone for men. And estrogen is the main hormone for women in terms of sex hormones. But we have both. Even men have some estrogen. Okay?
Yes, actually even men, because they have some estrogen.
They do. So we have both, but it's just about the role of the hormone in our body and how it affects our function. So for women, we start to go through, and let me show you graphically because this is a video podcast. this is what happens to your estrogen during perimenopause. It does this kind of thing.
So it's up and down, up and
fluctuating,
down.
up and down, up and down. Progesterone tends to decline kind of more steady. And if you look at the charts, it just starts to
Just
decline
kind of
this
goes
way. It's
down.
going down. So it's estrogen that's creating the havoc that we feel.
Because it's
when-
up, it's down, it's up. Okay.
It's like a roller coaster journey. So what are some of the things that women start to notice during perimenopause? A big one is your change in your cycle, your periods. So either your periods become heavier or they become irregular. But there's a change because remember, estrogen is doing this kind of thing up and down. So there are times you might even have estrogen dominance, and then there's times you have loss. And that can manifest in what we call crime scene periods, when people have like super heavy periods out of nowhere. It's like a crime scene.
Like literally. Yeah,
literally.
and I experienced that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Crime scene periods. So a good marker for women to look is to start to see if there are changes in their periods. Because one of the most common misconceptions is that nothing happens until your period ends. But your period ending is the last part,
the last part
of
of the whole
perimenopause,
journey.
and it is when you now hit menopause. So menopause is when you haven't had your period for 12 consecutive months.
See, even that's usually up for debate that people do not know. So it's consecutively 12 months.
12 plus 1 day, I will say. So
Okay.
it's 1 year plus 1 day. Then if you've had no period for one whole year, then you can say you've hit menopause. And technically menopause is that 1 day when you haven't had your period for 12 consecutive months. And then you become post-menopausal. So like I'm post-menopausal. And post-menopausal is just now living without a period. And your change in hormones has happened. And then you kind of go into a period where you start to stabilize a bit more. But we can talk about that. We'll come back to that. Perimenopause, let's go back to perimenopause, because this, I think, is the most misunderstood.
Anywhere
phase.
in the world. It's like women for the first time, we are discovering this. Like, wait, what?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen a lot of like content of like perimenopause. I didn't even know the word existed. So perimenopause, the time leading up to menopause, when we feel the most changes in our bodies because of the changes in levels of estrogen and progesterone.
Yeah.
Okay. So it varies in every woman. No woman's journey it's like there's no like one size fits all. Everybody has their own unique journey. That's why I say, yes, you should go to your mother and even your grandmother to get an idea of what your journey will be, but it's not going to be like replica. Okay. So I'll point out that for me, I went through premature menopause, which means that, and menopause is basically when your ovarian function ends. Yeah. So let's also clarify that. When your period ends and your ovaries have stopped working.
They just basically, you're not producing any more eggs.
No.
We're done.
Yeah. Well, the theory is technically you're born with all the eggs that you have.
Oh, yes.
They even say by the time you're in gestation, when you're a baby,
you already have all your
you
eggs?
already have all your eggs for life. That's the theory. Okay. So you just release as you
until they're done
from puberty until you hit menopause, when your ovaries now stop. Like there's no more. There are no more eggs.
There are no more. We're done.
Zimeisha, Kwisha.
Yeah. Bye.
So that's the end of your ovarian function. But the time leading up to, which could be, as I said, 2 years to 10 years, you still have eggs. Even if your periods become irregular, you can still get pregnant. So,
oh yes, that's the misconception. Yes.
So you see, when people have the kid in their 40s, Zawadi or whatever they name this, the gift, the child, right, who just pops out of nowhere, because women then think, oh, my period's not regular.
Oh, I haven't had a period in 5 months. I'm okay. Yes.
But you still have eggs. Yeah. So you could still get pregnant. So if you don't want to get pregnant, you should still think about contraception. Yeah. So this change that's happening, and let's go back. The main hormone for women being estrogen has a protective function in our bodies as women. So in women's health, estrogen is important for our brain health. It's important for our heart health. It's important for our bones. It's important for our skin. It's important for our eyes. Okay, it's important for everything. Because we have estrogen receptors all over our bodies. So when this estrogen starts to go down, it affects the entire body. But I think the important thing for women to understand is And for me, that I think this is the most important, is just to really know that your brain, your heart, and your bones and your genital urinary area is most likely going to be affected.
Right.
So the range of symptoms or things that or changes women experience, it could be brain fog. So let's start with the brain, because estrogen is the master regulator of the woman's brain. The woman's brain specifically.
Is that where we are all over the place? Like here, there.
So it's such an important factor for our brain. So what happens in our 40s when women are, and I'll use 40s because that's the general time frame that women are hitting perimenopause, between 42 and 45. Okay, what's happening then? Most likely you're thriving in your career or you're building a business. Okay, what also happens in your 40s and sometimes in your early 50s? You have children. You are taking care maybe sometimes of parents.
Yes.
Right? So I always say we're like kind of the sandwich generation. So here we are, then we have parents we need maybe taking care of,
children.
and children. So you're like, it's like it's a sandwich. So all these women around this time are experiencing a lot. And then your estrogen starts to go down. So can you imagine the combination?
Yes.
Are we surprised that women are feeling overwhelmed? Women are feeling, forgetful. So this is related to the brain because we're estrogen's going down. We start to have brain fog. We start to have memory difficulties. We start to feel overwhelmed, anxiety.
Yes.
Some women have depression.
Yeah.
Not feeling like yourself. Mood swings. That's a big one.
That's a very big one.
It can ruin relationships.
Yes,
it
actually,
creates problems in relationships.
I have seen a study that shows this is actually when most divorces happen.
Yeah.
It's in that age,
during
depression.
perimenopause.
Yeah, during perimenopause.
When women are like, enough.
And we don't know what's going on with our body. And I'll share my experience because I'm right, literally, I'm going, I think, to 10 years. Because now if I look back, I have no idea what it was until maybe I would say 5 years ago when I first heard the word. And to really start to understand it was when I met you. And then I started looking into it more and I was in shock. So mine started with insomnia.
Yes.
And
glad you brought it up. That's another big one.
And it at 40. And I love sleep. I have never had issues sleeping. But then all of a sudden, I would go for weeks without sleep. I'm exhausted. And what comes with being exhausted? I'm cranky.
Mood swings.
I am moody.
Yes. Yes.
But I never associated it with changes in my body. Yeah. It also happened to be at the time when I started a business. So what did I blame it on?
Business stress.
It's business stress.
Yeah.
Then I started having anxiety. I've always had an amazing memory. Most people will tell you I'll remember everything.
Yeah.
That started going.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating.
It really is.
It's very, very, very frustrating. My periods also became very, very, very heavy. Like really, like crime scene, basically.
Yeah.
And yet, I have very, very small fibroids. I never taken them out because even my gynecologist never worries about them. Every year, they're about the same size and they're tiny. But I blamed it
on the fibroids.
Yeah. I didn't realize it was my body changing. Yeah. In the last, I'd actually say the last 2 years, the hot flashes. That's also another misconception that if you're still having your periods, you shouldn't
have these symptoms.
Hot flashes.
Yeah.
And I make people laugh. Like, I have been in situations, literally, I'm on my period, I have cramps, I'm popping ibuprofen for the pain, and I'm having a hot flash. I can't even get ready to go anywhere because I'm dripping sweat.
Yeah.
So that has been my experience. And me learning all this information, first starting with you, because you're the ones who kind of really opened my eyes, and doing the research, now I'm more aware of my body. And I remember telling a friend of mine this, what's going on with our body. She literally went, I thought my body hated me. That was what you hear a lot from women when they first this light bulb moment, because I am not crazy.
Yes.
Something is happening.
It's like an aha moment when we start to have the conversations. And I want women to know, yes, you are not going crazy and you don't need to go through this alone, because just having the conversation really helps. So I find that a lot of women justify, and the way you said, I did the same thing, right? So in my, in my early 40s, when I came back home about 11, 12 years now. And I went into the restaurant business. So I was a lawyer in the US. I came home and then I decided to go into business. And I went from 1 to 2 to 3 restaurants. And during this time, and especially between my first and my second restaurant, I had a lot of anxiety. I'd never experienced anxiety. Stress is also an amplifier of these symptoms. Because if you have high cortisol in your body from stress, then it amplifies your changes or your symptoms. So you'll have anxiety, weight gain, especially around the belly.
The middle.
And there's a direct relationship between cortisol and the gain of belly fat. Okay?
Yes.
Estrogen going down, cortisol going up, belly fat just lands. It's like poof, no matter what you do.
Yeah, and when you're talking about cortisol and estrogen, actually body function.
Yes.
When you're stressed, cortisol is up high in your body.
Yes.
Your body actually stops. It almost like stops other functions.
Correct.
And it's biological because cortisol is a fight or flight hormone.
Yes.
So if it's so high, your estrogen will not be produced properly because you're not thinking about reproduction, basically, because you need to run for your life or fight.
Correct.
We shouldn't be prioritizing estrogen or estrogen, depending on.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then you talked about the belly fat.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's another change, right? So we talked about some of the brain related, which are mood, anxiety, depression, not feeling like yourself. Then the body.
Forgetfulness. You come up the stairs and you're like, I went for something, but I have no idea what. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a real thing. It's a real thing. Then it comes to your body, right? So one of the big things is the weight gain, and it's specifically belly fat. It's like your body changes.
Never had belly fat before.
Correct.
Yes.
Your body shape just changes. And also sometimes body fat in your upper body. So your arms may get bigger, you start getting back fat and the belly fat. So that's the typical redistribution of fat on your body during menopause or perimenopause and menopause. It's because your estrogen is going down and your body is looking for other sources of estrogen, and fat tissue also produces, but a different kind of estrogen, not the one that's produced in our ovaries, which is the most beneficial, estradiol. It's a different type of estrogen, and it's found in the fat cells. So it's looking for ways
estrogen
to give
in
you
the fat cell.
Yes.
So it's like
storing
more fat,
so you can get a bit more estrogen, but it's a different form of estrogen, right?
Okay. How is it different?
So there's 3 kinds of estrogen, and I can't remember. One is estrone, I can't remember the second one, and the third one is estradiol. So estradiol from the ovaries is the one that is used most by the body for all the functions that we're talking about in the receptors of your body, without getting too scientific. So the one that is stored in fat cells is increased because your one from your ovary, which is, I guess I could call it the superior form, is diminishing. So your body, in its intelligence, mind you, that's intelligence.
I can get it from here.
Let me find another way to make some estrogen for you.
Intelligent and efficient.
Yeah. But because we don't like that shape and it's not in line with what society views as a good shape, then we're like, I don't like this belly fat. But if you look generally, when women get older, they tend to get a bit of belly. Even if they're slim,
there's still be a little bit.
Kind of like, there's this kind of change around the waist because of the redistribution of fat, because of the change.
And why is it so hard to lose? Like you can't do, and the most frustrating thing, especially for women who've never had belly fat.
Yeah.
And now they have it, and they diet, and they're exercising, they're doing everything they used to do, but it's not going
doesn't
nowhere.
work.
Why doesn't it work?
Because
and what does a woman need to do? What do we need to do then to...
So the reality is this, the body is changing, okay? And when your estrogen goes down, just the way your body responds changes. And we can't do the same things we used to do, right? So like everybody will, like, not everybody, I say, some women will say, I've been doing more cardio, I've restricted my eating, but it's like you wake up and you're like 5 kgs heavier. And it is. Sometimes it feels that dramatic, right? Because as I said, when we go back to the personal experience, I was experiencing this during my mid-40s. Like I came back home I had been really into fitness, and I was a fitness instructor in the States. I did it on the side while I practiced law and worked in finance, but it helped me stay in shape. I came and I started Bikram yoga, right?
Right.
And was doing really well. And then all of a sudden I opened the business, and then I wasn't as active, but the stress was really high. And then the belly fat started piling on. So stress does not help. That's what I want to really say. I think my big message is there's lifestyle interventions are important, okay? So stress management is kind of really critical in this time of the transition, because if your stress level is high and your cortisol is high, then you just get kind of pounded by all these different changes or symptoms, as we call them, including belly fat. And then the way we exercise has to change, because our body cannot do what it used to do before because it doesn't have as much estrogen, right?
Right.
So the big focus is encouraging women to really go into strength training, right? Less cardio. Yeah. You don't really need as much cardio. This jumping, running is actually kind of like oxidative stress on your body. So more walking and low impact exercise, and more strength and flexibility and balance. So things like yoga, Pilates, walking. Spinning is considered a low impact because your feet are, you're kind of, but it's like as long as one foot is on the ground, right? Like, so running is not low impact, but if you've been a runner your entire life and it's what your body recognizes,
Probably
it's okay.
continue. Yeah. But it's not when you should pick up running.
Correct.
And
you don't start it
out.
then.
Exactly.
You don't say, this belly fat is growing, let me start running. That's kind of like not the solution.
And actually, sometimes because those very high impact, the stress is also really high on your body. It actually sometimes makes it worse.
Yes, it does. It actually does. And then you'll probably feel more tired, right? Because your lower estrogen affects your energy. Yeah. Okay. So a lot of women complain of fatigue around this time in their 40s and going into the 50s. That fatigue is not just life. So as I said, this whole thing of justifying, right?
Yes,
so
because there's so much going on. Yes.
We don't want to say it's my hormones are changing, but your hormones are changing and it impacts you in every way. And we haven't even touched on many of, they're like, when I started doing a lot of this research and studying around perimenopause and menopause, they used to cite like 35 symptoms of the changes of perimenopause and menopause. Now it's gone up to 50. And Dr. Mary Claire recently said up to 70. So I want to go and look at her additional list. I haven't documented those, but it could be up to 50. So essentially, all the changes that are happening in your body are related to the fact that you're losing estrogen. So your skin becomes drier, nails brittle. But let me just give a disclaimer here, because every woman's journey is unique.
It's very unique, yeah.
Not every woman will experience what we're talking about. Okay, so not every woman is going to experience 35 or 50 symptoms. Are you going to experience some of them? Yes.
But no.
All of them? Probably not. But you should still pay attention to your body and note what these changes are. So we've talked about the brain. We talked about belly fat. Their effects on heart health. Okay, because estrogen helps kind of the pliability of your arteries and your blood flow and good cholesterol. And then when it goes down, it affects your heart function. So women actually at a higher risk of heart attacks. Okay. It affects your bone health, which is why I think when a woman is in her 40s, and definitely by the time she hits 50, she should get a DEXA scan so you can see what your bone density is as a baseline to understand whether you're at risk for osteoporosis or osteopenia, because these are kind of the changes that start to happen.
What is osteopenia?
Osteopenia is just before osteoporosis. Okay. So it's the early phase.
It's the early phase.
Yes. Okay. Which is still reversible, right? And then you get to osteoporosis. And things like lifting weights definitely helps your bone health.
Talk more about that. Yeah. Yes.
And then estrogen helps your bone health, right? Vitamin D helps your bone health. So there's what we call, now they have started calling it the musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause, where menopause affects your muscles and your bones. So achy, like when people have joint pain, joints. Like, my knees have started hurting, my joints are hurting. it's related to reduction in estrogen in your body.
But we don't know that.
And we don't know that.
And
And I think for me, the thing that's most troubling is the risk for osteoporosis. Okay, granted, the risk is higher in probably white women or people who've dieted a lot in their life.
in their lives, yeah.
So they already have kind of worn down their bones. But if you've already been lifting weights, which is why I encourage women from when they're younger to start lifting weights, then your bones are generally stronger. But if you're getting older and your bones are weakening because you don't have enough estrogen and you're not doing anything about it, then your risk of like getting a hip fracture is very high when you're getting older.
When you're getting older.
And they've shown the stats, again from the West, that when a woman gets a hip fracture, especially as she gets older, she dies within a year of getting a hip fracture. And I know somebody personally whose mother had a
hip fracture.
And died. Yes.
So a lot of us women, we are very anti-lifting.
Yeah.
And I think as actually we get into our 40s, we're even more, no, I'll bulk up. I don't want to lift. Can you tell us why it is so important, not just for bone health, but even keeping your muscle healthy? Because
metabolism, muscles, bone health, all of it. So
it's actually more for, at younger, I think we do it for aesthetics.
yes.
Older, it's actually
strength.
about life and strength and living a quality life.
Quality life, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like we have to I think we have to change the mindset around this, right? And we have to admit we're Generation X, right? There was a lot of focus when we were growing up on this whole thing of being slim and thin. And the diet culture was big, and it was a toxic culture.
time.
Actually, if you look at it,
No, it was very toxic.
people were under eating. Anorexia, bulimia was out there. I know definitely in the States it was high because
very,
we
very
lived in the
high.
States, and
Yes.
you and I, and we saw this. So there was this pressure on looking thin, right? And I think just changing the mindset to say we need to focus on strength.
To be strong, yes.
To be strong, because you need strength when you get older, and especially when you go through perimenopause and menopause. And I'm not telling women to become bodybuilders, right? And I don't think,
Actually, it takes a lot for a woman to gain that kind of muscle.
There's a lady who says, don't flatter yourself.
No, yes,
you
don't.
Think women will be like, I don't want to lift because I'm going to build muscle.
No,
Like, don't
you
flatter
know.
yourself. It's so hard to
It
build
is
muscle.
really hard.
You're never going to look like a bodybuilder unless you do all the work required.
they do.
And it's a lot of work, right?
A lot of work.
It is.
Yes.
So at the base, what we're saying is like focusing more on strength is various things. It's going to benefit your bone health. It's going to benefit basically just your muscles, your tendons, your ligaments, because it just strengthens your body function. And then it's going to help with your metabolism, because as you get older, your metabolism slows down. That's another part of aging. When we're from the age of, I guess when we hit 40 and we start getting older, we're losing a certain percentage of our muscle mass.
Yes.
They say 3% per year. Okay. Ooh. And it's progressive. So if you're not doing anything to build muscle, if you're not working out, you're just losing muscle mass. So I don't know if you've seen like older women, they just shrivel, right? They
just shrivel and they become smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's because you've been losing. So there's kind of like an atrophy. You're losing your muscle mass.
Your muscle. And you're not using, the body is very efficient. If you're not using it,
if you don't use it, you lose it,
you
right?
lose it, yeah.
Because the body is so smart. The intelligence we have in this body, it's amazing. So I think that would be my case for advocating that women do strength training. And strength training is not only just lifting weights, because, let's also kind of discuss that. So there's resistance training, strength training. Those are all beneficial. So you could be doing things with your own body weight. You don't have to go to the gym and do the that's what I think that's the resistance some people have. No, I have to go and lift those heavy weights in the gym. No. That's actually good for you, but you don't have to do that. If you have some type of resistance training, body weight, like things like some push-ups, squats. And then you do some balance. Yoga is actually a really good exercise where you do use your body weight in some instances, especially when you're doing power yoga and vinyasa yoga, because you actually do like push-ups, the chaturanga, as you call, you come down,
just come.
and like
Yeah.
you're actually working with your own body weight. And then it also includes balance, which you need balance exercises as you're aging, plus some flexibility, which is also good for
It's
an
very,
aging
very
body.
good for an aging body.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would encourage, and if women just get some dumbbells, like 5-10 kgs, and use it. And I say the gym is optional, but movement is not.
Movement is not. You
Right?
have to move your body.
You have to move your body.
Yeah.
So that could be your walking, get a friend, get a neighbor, get an accountability partner with sister, catch up with friends over a walk in Karura Forest, go hiking. But movement is so important in this phase. This is the lifestyle kind of interventions to help us manage the changes we're experiencing in our bodies.
So, what misconceptions do you hear most when it comes to perimenopause?
So perimenopause. So the first one being, Missy Jeffika, I still have my period, right? Okay, so that's the big one.
Yeah, that's I think is the biggest
This
one.
is the biggest, right?
Yeah.
Because your period is still there when you're going through perimenopause.
Right.
It's the last thing, or it could be the last
I
thing.
can attest to that. It's still there.
Yes. So that's a big one. That menopause happens when you're old. So people don't I'm 53. I don't feel old. Like in the old definition of what women look like
You
in
would
their
be
50s.
done,
right. Like
right.
this is, so I remember what we thought 50 was.
50 was.
Right.
I remember.
This is 50 today, right? So I'm just saying we're not quote unquote old. And I think you become old if you adopt that attitude of I'm old.
I think so.
Women are living longer. Women are doing more. We're going to be working longer. Women are going to open businesses even in their 50s, like I have with my wellness business. That's another misconception that, menopause only happens when you're old. A big one that menopause is only about, people think menopause is just about hot flashes.
Yes. People think it's just the hot flashes and that's it.
It's more than the hot flashes, right? There's so many changes that happen to your body. And the most important ones related to your brain, your heart, and your bones, and your genitourinary system. And I want us to come back to that because this is a big one people don't want to talk about, is that those things affect your life and your lifestyle. And they can even affect you, I guess, the aging and getting diseases, lifestyle diseases. So women need to understand that perimenopause and menopause is a change that we're all going to go through. It's natural. It's going to affect certain parts of our bodies. It doesn't happen when you're old. It happens now in midlife.
In midlife. Yeah, it is
defining. This is midlife. I would say for me, old is like 70 and above. Like my mother is 75. I would call her old, right?
Yeah.
So that's another misconception.
So the misconceptions,
Yes.
and there are so many. And even now, when I was speaking to my therapist the other day, and she kept asking these questions: do you have anxiety? Like, do you feel like you don't want to do anything sometimes? Are you forgetful? I'm like, yeah, but all those are also, I'm perimenopausal. Those all come. So I'm not sure whether it's therapy or it's, all of it coming in together. And one of them she asked me was, do you perform the same way at work or in your business that you used to? And I'm like, no. Yeah. So tell us more about that one.
Yeah. So I think with the transition, remember, estrogen is also responsible for our energy, our mood, our general well-being, how we feel about ourselves. So when it starts going down, it's just affecting how we feel. Like, I remember personally when I was, as I said, I was in the restaurant business, and I would wake up and I had anxiety. I didn't know then. I'm looking back retrospectively.
Blamed it on the business.
And I was blaming everything on the business. I'm stressed. It's a lot of work. So I had a lot of anxiety before I'd go to work. And I'm like, I'd sit there and have my coffee and literally had to gather myself to go to work because I just had so much anxiety about it. Like, the pressure of a new business. I'd never been in the restaurant business. So this was kind of like amplifying what I was everything I was feeling was because I was already like, I had hit menopause in my early 40s, right? And I didn't know. And And then that whole, like, even depressive mood. So it affects women's productivity at work, because either you have problems with focus, you have memory difficulties, you have brain fog, you have low energy, you probably have insomnia or sleep disturbances, which is then affecting. So it's kind of like a cyclical thing.
The mood.
You're not sleeping, it affects your energy, it affects your mood, it affects your productivity. So you're showing up, and then sometimes women are like angry, you know?
Yes, and your team all of a sudden is like,
Yes.
I have this friend of mine, she's a banker.
Yes.
And she told me there's a time after she left the job, her team never told her this. It's after she had left the company.
Yeah.
And she had lunch with the team. They're like, there were a time we were afraid of you because you would just snap for no reason.
Yeah.
But she had managed this team for a very, very long time. So they knew it wasn't her. And it wasn't all the time, but they never knew when, how to gauge. So they just basically avoided her. So is that happening? The snapping and sometimes you're really rough on your team. Is that the anxiety? Is that the mood? What is causing it? Or is it everything together?
I think it's the whole snowball effect. But it's related to
salad of
your brain having less estrogen, so you're not able to regulate your moods as much as you used to. And that's when women get to the point where they're not afraid to speak, like, what they... Because remember, okay, so have you guys... you have to go see... Wanda Sykes has this joke that she did recently. This one is hilarious. I need to post it on social media. So she says, when we were younger as women, as estrogen, we had lots of estrogen. We used to say sorry all the time. Sorry. She's like, you're in the supermarket, somebody hits your trolley, you say, sorry, my foot was in the way. I mean, it's such a hilarious video. But we would apologize more, or, because her joke being we had a lot of estrogen. But as you start getting older, you don't really care anymore. Like, your estrogen's going down, you speak your mind, and you could have more of like anger and not pretending, right?
That
like
you're not angry, so it comes out.
It comes out. So I think that amplifies kind of any, if we have any kind of anger, if we don't know how to cope with the change, sometimes we just don't understand what we're going through. And that's why we need to have the conversation, because how are you going to manage your mood or manage your relationships or ask for some compassion or help if you don't know what you're going through?
Actually, you don't even know what's happening to you. Yeah.
So if you now recognize you're in your 40s, you have a big job, say in corporate, and you're struggling, maybe you might ask, can I just work like 2 or 3 days from home, or leave a bit early, because they know you're already responsible. Like the top talent in a lot of companies
is already responsible.
Corporate thing, think are women in their 40s and 50s, because the retirement age is now 60, right? So they're women in their 40s and 50s. They have big responsibilities, and some of them are struggling and they don't know how to ask. So companies should be concerned, how can we support our women over 40 and 50, our talent in our company, going through this transition, now knowing that this hormonal change affects how we show up as a person, how we show up at work. If it's affecting our focus, it's affecting our productivity, it's affecting our mood, it's affecting our relationships with our team.
And that also affects productivity. Because if your team is not feeling motivated or appreciated, productivity drops. So it's a concern actually for the whole organization.
I think it's a societal concern too, because it's affecting relationships in the home also.
Yes.
Between men and women. So I did this... I was on this show I think it's called Y254. It's a show for young people. I didn't realize somebody had booked it, and I arrived there and I was like, okay, it's fine. It's a youth channel. And the lady who was interviewing me is 25 years old. So we talked about menopause, and she was like, oh, so that's what my mother is going through. So she started to recognize when we were talking about it that her mother is going through menopause. Her mother is 53 or 54. Not like close to my age. And I was like, but now will you have a bit more compassion for your mother? Will you now ask her, maybe can you help her sometimes when you see she's overwhelmed? Maybe she just needs you to just say, Mom, you take a break. Let me handle this for you. Because as a mother, as a woman, we're so used to the responsibility. If people around us then understand that, we're going through this hormonal transition, they can be more compassion. You know,
Yes.
they can be more help. They can be systems or things that are done. Even your spouse, if he now
And your partner,
your partner, and your
yes.
spouse now understands. Oh, there's this transition happening. It's going to affect her mood. It's going to affect how she shows up. Hey, let her just go out with her
Just go
girlfriends
out
for
and-
lunch.
for lunch.
Or if she
Yeah.
wants to sleep in, let me let her sleep in. Or let me take her on a vacation. Or, you know, let me do something nice. Or, you know, let me help. How can I help? It'll improve the relationship. And then if she doesn't want to have sex because libido starts going down, then you can have the conversation.
You can have the conversation then.
Yeah.
Yes. I had this, we had that event, it was Pinky's event, What the 40s.
Yes.
And I had this conversation with a lady, I think she's, I want to say maybe she's in her early 50s. And we talked about something about she met her partner when she was about her 40s. And it changes, even how long as
Yes.
a woman it takes for you now to get in the mood.
Yeah.
You know, we can't just jump into it anymore. You need
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
for a few more, you know, a little
More
bit longer.
foreplay.
More foreplay. We need
Yes.
to talk about those things because,
Yes.
and this is how it affects men, because at some point you were younger, you just jump in and let's do this. Now, when he initiates and they start feeling like
They
you're
take it
rejecting them.
personally, yes.
They take it personally.
Yeah.
So, but as a woman, if I don't know this is what I'm going through, there's no way I can explain it
Correct.
to the man.
Yes.
And I think that's why sometimes relationship end up breaking.
Yes.
So can you stress enough and also tell women where to find the information about
Yes.
what our body is going through? Because it affects everything.
It really does.
In our lives, not just us, it's our children. Because you come home and snap at your children. Where can women find this information? Like, where can we find it? And
Well,
how
I
can
want you to
we
come to
get
Fab-u-las
re-
Living. Yes, come to my platform. So I have a community, Fab-u-las Living private group on Facebook, where I do menopause chats. I actually have had 3 seasons. We had like season 1, I did with Dr. Donna Thorough. We had 13 episodes. Season 2 was a bit shorter, 5 episodes. And then season 3, I did 8 episodes. I forget, I have to check. So the conversation's happening there. I always have events and we bring a doctor because I'm not a doctor. I'm just a women's health and wellness advocate who's very interested in this area of perimenopause and menopause because of my own personal experience. And and the good news I would say is there's a lot more coming out on social media, but come to Fab-u-las Living. There'll be more information. And I really am excited because I want to do a whole thing on sex and menopause.
Yes.
Because this is a big area that needs to be talked about. And it needs time. We need to talk about,
needs time.
libido. We need to talk about desire. We need to talk about, some women report higher libido. Some women completely lose it. Yes. And then there's an issue with orgasm. It takes longer. The intensity might be different, and things like desire, some of it also starts from the brain. So also, the mood, how do you
Is that why it's taking longer to get you there? More foreplay?
Yes.
Okay.
It's that. They could be related from mood. But then also your testosterone is going down. And testosterone affects your libido.
Exactly.
Okay,
that's actually, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It is. Because and when you become post-menopausal, so that means your estrogen has gone down, your progesterone has gone down, and then testosterone is kind of the last one to kind of plummet. But in some women, it goes down a lot sooner. So some women really have effects of loss of libido. So it's an area that I'm excited to talk about more this year, 2024, because I think there's a need. I
love it.
Now that I've done the baseline awareness, we had to start with the fundamentals, which is what is perimenopause? What is menopause? Why should we have this conversation? Why, let's end the shame. Let's end the suffering. Then I feel like women are more open to, let's talk about the genitourinary symptoms and sex. And the genitourinary, I'll touch on them.
Yep.
Are things that can really debilitate some women. It'll be increased urinary tract infections.
Okay.
So you have
and
more UTIs.
So uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable. It could be vaginal dryness, which will then affect whether you want to have sex.
So no, because it
how
gets
you
dry.
have sex.
Yeah.
Correct.
And the how too. Yes.
Vaginal atrophy.
What is vaginal
And that
atrophy?
is more so a postmenopausal concern when your vagina starts to shrink. And then it makes it painful for you to have sex, and you have tears.
That's a new one. I didn't know about that one.
Vaginal atrophy. So there's change in your vagina.
Everything
because
is changing.
Estrogen is not happening there. It's not going there. But, and then, it's just, the good news is, and I'm going to say this because we haven't spoken about this at all, is that there is estrogen that you can use because we go into a hormone deficiency.
Yes.
Right? So what's happening is your estrogen's gone down, you go into a deficiency. You can choose to go for hormone replacement therapy. Okay? Hormone replacement therapy is recognizing your body is losing this hormone. Let's give you some more. I like to analogize it to when somebody has a thyroid dysfunction, they go and get thyroxine. When somebody has an insulin problem, they go and becomes diabetic, they're given insulin.
As simple as, and I'll talk about this because I'm anemic,
You need iron.
I need iron.
Yes.
And I don't think twice about it. It's what I need.
Correct.
But I think the problem comes, there was a study done, I don't know, was it in the 80s or
It
when
was
it?
2001, 2002.
It was that recent?
The World Health Institute study.
It was that recent that really, really made
scared everybody.
Scared everybody.
So what happened is this study was done by the World Health Initiative, WHI, and basically they had in their study about group women, and they concluded that hormone replacement therapy increases the risk of breast cancer.
Yes.
Now that they've gone back and looked at the study, they've seen that some of the things that they were amplifying were statistically insignificant,
Right.
number one. Number two, the women who they used, a lot of the average age was 63. And many were smokers. So from their lifestyle, they were already at risk
Of getting
certain
breast
diseases.
cancer.
So
or
there's
other diseases, yes.
breast cancer, whatever disease. So there was no way the conclusion,
There was no correlation.
the conclusion that it's the HRT that is causing this increase, it's a bit stretched out. So what happened? There was a big media scare. When the news came out from the WHI, it went to all the news outlets and it was just like HRT causes cancer. So the media scare it became a frenzy and everybody freaked out. And then now they went back and slowly have been looking at the data, and that study has been rubbished.
Yeah, it has been rubbish, but it's not out there.
Correct.
It's
It's now we're starting to talk about it. So
Exactly.
those of us who are very passionate about this area of women's health and research and data, let me tell you the truth. Women were not used in research until the 90s. So that's when you're asking 90s, that's where that
we've
90s.
existed for
Correct.
whatever, but there was no
do you know
research
how
around women.
We were treated like small men. So they would test on men. Whatever worked, then they would just give us less. Because we're like little men.
I'm sorry, really?
Yes, really.
Wow.
Yes. So
So-
this whole gender disparity is even in medical gender disparity. In research, women were not being used. So forget even us talking about disparity in pay, in opportunity. It's also in medical health
In
and
health.
research. So if a woman, and then that's why people have never really, I think, talked about menopause, because even in medical school, education around menopause,
That's
some
what I've
doctors
heard.
say is like 3 days. Somebody says, I think when they're gynecologists, maybe 1 week.
1 week or
In
something.
the
Yes.
whole time they're studying.
Or the 4 years, however long it is. Yeah.
And some doctors even say, I don't even remember us covering menopause. So this is such an important phase of a woman's life. So I always say your sexual health matters from puberty to menopause. It's all part of your sexual health. From when you get a period to when you menstruate, like your cycle, to when you become pregnant, if you choose to become pregnant, to when you go into perimenopause and then menopause,
after.
and then how you live post-menopausally, because you also have to manage your health knowing that your hormones are different. So understanding women's health in that context and understanding our hormonal health is so critical in understanding a woman. So studying a man and then using the
Prescribe
same,
less.
Yeah, we'll
Just-
use
just a little bit less.
a smaller amount for women.
For the women.
It's like it befuddles me. And I'm so glad that finally, in the 90s. And there was a reason, and I'll tell you what it is. There was some study done, I think, in the 50s in the US, and they used women, and it caused birth defects. So some women got pregnant, and it caused birth defects in some of the women in the study. So the men said, no, we're not using women anymore because they get pregnant and they're hormonal. And so that's the reason they gave. And so women were then excluded. And it was for safety reasons. But of course, yeah, it doesn't mean you exclude them completely.
Everything.
But you don't get women who are pregnant.
No.
Yeah. There's certain things you can do in the study to be sure that the women are okay. So only until the 90s. Did you know the 90s? I was in college in the 90s.
Exactly. I'm like, I was out of high school. I was in college.
I was in college in the 1990 to 94. I was in college. That's when they started using women in research trials. We're sitting here. We were already grown-ups when they started.
We were grown-ups, yeah.
So women's health is an area that has had a lot of, gender disparity. And I'm glad that finally we're paying attention to women and the hormones that are important to us, and estrogen being the most important hormone. For women's health. From your brain to your heart to your bones to your skin to your vagina to your uterus to everything. And we need to give it that importance, and we need to talk about it more and acknowledge we're hormonal beings, and it's okay.
It's okay.
Even men are hormonal beings. Testosterone is their main hormone, but they don't lose it as fast as we do. That's why men can have kids even in their 80s and 90s. Right? I don't know about 90s, but 80s for sure. And our fertility ends when
that
our
last
ovary
egg
function,
basically is released and done.
And the average age, we never said that, of menopause is 51, right? So technically, I should be going through menopause now, and I went through it like a decade
ago.
Yeah, so which is why I'm passionate about this, because it happened to me. I was perimenopausal in my 30s. I did not know.
You didn't know?
I hit menopause by my early 40s. I had no idea. Not a single doctor mentioned it to me. I was trying to get pregnant in my 40s. Not a single.
It actually it's already done.
I never heard that word menopause
the whole time.
Never understood it until much later in my later 40s, when I was like, no, we need to do something. We need to talk about this, because I've always been interested in women's health anyway. And I'm like, this is an area that needs attention. And my own personal experience going through it, not understanding, being hit with symptoms like crazy, thinking I was going crazy. Okay. Yeah. My body changed completely. Right. I remember my energy changed completely. My mood changed completely. I don't even know how I even was in a relationship at that point, but I know it definitely affected my relationship. And now with that understanding, I have so much compassion for women who are going through the transition, because I want them to know you're not alone and you're not going crazy.
Because we think we're going crazy.
Yeah.
Like I said.
And there's no shame, and we don't need to suffer through this. We can get help. And there's more data coming out now, and because I think there's going to be more research
about it.
There's more information coming out, and they are saying hormone replacement therapy is beneficial for women. Is beneficial for women, more beneficial than harmful. That's the statement. Hormone replacement therapy is more beneficial than harmful for women, especially women in perimenopause, right? So some women might say, no, I'll wait until you don't have to wait.
You don't have to wait until then.
Your hormones are already fluctuating, and it's affecting your quality of life, then it's worth investigating. But you must go to a doctor. Please don't go to the pharmacy and ask them to give you estrogen.
Just
go to your doctor and have the conversation with your doctor and find out if it's right for you, because it may not be right for everybody. Some people have higher risks of certain diseases,
so that's why go to a doctor.
You must go to a doctor.
Yeah.
And then make the decision for yourself. My whole thing is hormone replacement therapy should be a choice for women.
Yeah.
And it's your choice. I'm on it, and I can tell you it has helped me tremendously. It has helped me with my energy. It has helped me with my mood. I can show up for myself. I can show up for my workouts. It has, helped with my relationships. I And technically for women who go through premature menopause, and let me define that. Premature menopause is when women hit menopause before the age of 40.
Okay.
And then early menopause is before the age of 45. So there's actually two.
So there's premature and early.
Yes.
Okay.
So early is if you hit menopause before 45, which means like your periods completely end.
At before 45,
Before 45,
gone
yeah.
completely.
And
Okay.
if it's before 40, then it's premature menopause. And it could be what I had, which is called primary ovarian insufficiency. It's called POI. And it basically means your ovaries fail. And your ovaries could fail when you're younger.
Yeah. They could
Yeah.
actually fail when you're younger.
Yeah.
'cause-
So mine failed when
Okay.
I was younger. And that's why I wasn't able to have children when I tried in my 40s. It didn't happen. So I think women just need to know all this, because there could be some woman out there who never had regular periods. She needs to go and see her doctor to make sure she doesn't have primary ovarian
Primary ovarian,
insufficiency.
yeah.
Because that was a big thing. My periods were completely irregular. I remember one time I went for 8 months without a period, and then my ex-husband, when I was in the States, he was like, there's something wrong. You haven't had your period for 8 months. You need to go to the doctor. And for me, I was like, it's just convenient, right? So those things that are not normal, like if you're not having regular periods, go see the doctor, go find out, because it could be related to your fertility, and it's better so you can plan accordingly, and not be like what happened to our generation, which is that we didn't really know a lot of things. We just it just happened, and then
It just kinda
you
happened.
learn after the fact. What you said at the introduction, you believe not everybody has to experience something to know something, right?
You
So
don't
if
just-
you can learn in advance things to look out for, this is one of the things.
This is one of the
Check
things.
your hormonal health. Check your period history. Check your, women ask, what test should I do to know if I'm in perimenopause and menopause? So let me answer that one for you, because it's an important one.
Yeah.
If you're over the age of 42 or 45, generally, between 42 and 45, and you're experiencing these changes, you don't need a test to tell you
Your
going
body's
through
already
perimenopause.
telling
Your
you.
body is telling you.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I want women to understand, is that we should learn about our bodies, because you are the best advocate for yourself.
Yes.
Right? You will go to a doctor, and a doctor can gaslight you. It happens all the time. Women go, they're having mood changes, they're feeling anxious and depressed, and they're given antidepressants. And it's perimenopause.
Yeah.
And they're not told. That's gaslighting.
That's gaslighting.
Right?
It's like, you're just a
or
woman,
you go
you're depressed.
and you're like, this is happening, and the doctor says, this is normal. So you're just aging. You're getting old. Like, vaginal dryness or increase. And
You're
they
just
just
getting
want
old.
you to just accept. But if there are things we can do, why should we just accept? We're going to live longer. I want to live longer. I want to live a vibrant life.
A
I wanna live
vibrant
with
life, quality of life.
quality of life with energy and vibrancy. I want to be able to even start new businesses if I want to, or help other people, mentor. This is the time we're stepping into what they call legacy years, when we're in our 40s and 50s, but more so in our 50s, when you start thinking like, what am I doing? What impact can I make? And if you don't have the energy because you're going through menopause,
You won't do it.
or you're unpleasant,
Or you're unpleasant. No one even wants you around them. It's okay. You don't have to volunteer. We're good. And part of it, I think, comes from, I feel like since you were a little girl, especially after, puberty, when
Yeah.
you hit, you start having your period. And, I do a lot of work advocacy around the,
Yes.
the menstruation and when it's beginning. But since then, you're not allowed to talk about it.
Shame.
It is shame.
shame.
Don't talk about it. And you learn to be ashamed.
Yes.
Even women around you shame you for it.
Correct.
You get older, and somewhere around maybe your 20s, your 30s, your uterus becomes community. Everybody's
Yes.
interested. Are you going to have a
Everybody's
baby? Are
interested
you going
in
to have
your
a baby?
fertility.
Yes.
You and I have talked about this, because people consistently will ask
Yes.
you, when are you having a baby? So when I was married, that was a big question. Yes, I got divorced. Another whole topic. You should talk about that one too. This whole stigma about divorce in this country.
Getting divorced, yes.
So, and then, to this day, people feel like they can just comment about, you'll still have a child, and I'm just like, yeah, wapi,
No,
menopause
it's
imefika.
not.
But it's not. I don't discuss it with people, because nobody has a right to kind of be all up in your ovaries and your fertility.
And that's why I
your
say
personal
you're literally, your ovaries and your uterus at that age become somewhere community. Everybody's allowed to just ask you
comment,
and
yeah.
comment about it. And I don't agree with it. We've talked about it before because some women are struggling.
Correct.
Some women don't have children.
Yes.
By choice,
Yes.
like myself.
Yes.
Some women like you, it is something you didn't even realize was happening with your body. And when you felt you were ready to, you couldn't.
It's too late.
I had a conversation with a friend of mine about PCOS, also on this podcast. Some women, it's infertility caused by PCOS.
Yeah.
And you talked about advocacy for your own body. So if you knew in your 20s what was going on with your body, do you feel like you would have been in a better position to maybe make different decisions?
Yeah. Yes, Anna. I mean, I think having the information and the knowledge would have given me more choices, right? So had I known that I had primary ovarian insufficiency, and that means that my ovary function ended earlier than most women, prematurely, right?
Yeah.
I could have made a different decision. I don't know now, right? You know,
But
like
yeah,
I
but
can't
information
speak
is power.
retrospectively. I remember when I was married, because I got married when I was 29. One of the things my mother consistently was like, you should have a baby. She was always on my case, right? And in a way, she was right, but I wasn't ready to have to be a mother then. And so it's like I've gotten to radical acceptance of this is my situation. It was difficult at some point, but I think ultimately you accept kind of like the cards you've been dealt in a way, if I want to call it that. But when I say women should be their own advocates, is understanding your body, learning, going and finding out. And the thing is, you're advocating for yourself when you go to your doctor. So you also need to educate your own self about your body. And it's looking at your family history. So like I later found out that both my mother and my grandmother went through early menopause. So not premature, early. Right? Okay. So by 40, 42.
But you found this out after
the fact, right? When I was now curious and I wanted more information. And my mother could never really articulate when she was constantly saying, have a baby, which is not a unique thing to say. A lot of mothers tell their daughters, right? Like you should have a child. They're kind of pressuring their kids to have a child because they want to be grandmothers. But I think maybe in the back of my mother's mind, which maybe she couldn't articulate well enough, and she's a smart, educated woman. It's not that it's just maybe that it may be too late, but she just didn't know how to articulate. That's what I have to think.
Because we also don't have these conversations. There is, I don't know, stigma around it. Like even us women going through perimenopause and menopause, we still don't talk about it, even to each other.
Yeah.
So I talked about PCOS. I was reading, as I was doing the research for PCOS, I knew very little about it, but I've learned quite a bit, especially from my friend Veronica. And apparently perimenopause and menopause manifests different in perimenopause women. Do you know?
In PCOS women?
Apparently, yes. Do you know how it manifests differently?
I have to look into that, actually. It's I'm not sure.
I thought it was very interesting. Yeah, I couldn't ask her because she's not there yet, but yeah.
No, I'll look into it. I know because there's two types of PCOS, right? There's the one where the eggs do not mature, right? There's one, and then there's a second form. So I will look at it. I'd rather not comment on it.
And now, yes, I just decided to bring it up.
But it's going to be interesting to look at PCOS. And I did a talk with Shiko of the PCOS Foundation. We talked about menopause, but we didn't really talk specifically around PCOS.
Menopause and PCOS.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I
think that would be interesting because it was a very interesting conversation about the whole menstruation. And as you mentioned, if you're not having a regular period, get checked.
Correct.
So
it could be PCOS, it could be
POI.
Yes.
It could be so many things. Yeah. So we go back to advocating for your own health as a woman. And a lot of us note when we're not even going to the doctor, we are justifying, we just feel tired because it's just life. It's how we're supposed to be feeling. So you mentioned earlier about from puberty and bringing women up to, talking about them and understanding their body. How do we go about connecting that, because a woman in her 20s right now is sitting there thinking, that's not my problem. I don't have to worry about it. What do you say? Like,
So I
how do we
think,
connect all of it so a
Yeah.
woman is aware through her whole life journey and
Yeah.
what her body is doing and what to expect and when to seek help?
So, I remember when we were having our positive aging conversations with the women in the Fabulous at Any Age campaign, we had one round table, and one of the women said, she uses this concept of, I was not ready to hear, I was not ready to see, right?
Yeah.
Referring to herself. And I think that's kind of, it made me step back and think about this. And I think it applies to me also and many women. When we're younger, we sometimes are not ready to hear or to see things,
True.
right? Because of what that that comment came up in the context of whether we had discussed menopause with our mothers and and things around aging. I think what I feel now, because there's more social media influence and there's more information out there, and the younger generation talks about things that we never spoke
talked
about.
about.
No, seriously, like trauma and
Triggers.
toxicity and triggers. I'm like, these are things we are learning like
normal,
now,
like
right?
trigger, what is that?
Yeah, right. So that was here. Those toxic people. Like, I was hanging out with some young women in their 30s, and I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation because I was like, this is not a conversation we would have had
No.
when we were 30, right? But I understand it's a generational kind of difference. So I'm hopeful that because the younger generation now is so connected and there's a lot of media and there's a lot of media consumption, that they're more ready to see and ready to hear the message. And the message is that we're all going to go through this because we were not even talking about it. So now at least we're talking about it. And the next step is for younger women to understand, hata wewe utafika hapo. We're all going to go through it. So if you know you're going to go through it, wouldn't you want to know what to look out for? Right? And what can you do now in your younger life to prepare yourself? And it's really around lifestyle. So we talked about HRT, right? It's a choice. But the thing that everybody can do is lifestyle interventions during perimenopause and menopause. And if women can create those habits when they're younger,
they're way easier.
then it becomes a bit easier. And that is like eating well, eating more protein. Women don't eat enough protein.
No, we don't eat enough protein.
Eating more fiber and eating things like complex carbohydrates. So not, kind of staying away from processed foods and eating more natural foods and complex fibrous, food with more fiber. So more protein and then multicolored vegetables. So if you're already kind of coming with that base of your eating better, that's going to help you.
Moving your body.
Moving your body is number 2. And even embracing strength training from when you're younger, because then you're already a step ahead because your bones are already stronger from lifting weights and your metabolism. So then you can combat the issue of muscle loss, bone strength, bone health, and slowing metabolism because you're ahead of the game.
Yep. So this one I just learned recently, and I don't know if you can speak more to it. Apparently, when we are now in this stage, starting with perimenopause, we don't metabolize alcohol very well.
Correct.
So it also aggravates the symptoms.
That is so true. So wine in particular. So women love wine,
right?
We all love our wine. I know you love a glass of rosé.
Yep, I do.
So yes, our body does not. So there are many things our bodies don't metabolize as well. Sugar is one of them. So some women can get more insulin resistant, which is why we encourage more protein.
And also the belly fat
The
gain
belly
also.
fat issue.
Yes.
And then alcohol, it just sits differently in your body. So the sulfides in wine are just they affect your sleep. So you're going to actually, what I noticed, and I noticed this on myself. If I drink wine, And now, I mean, now that I'm on HRT, I'm managing a lot of my symptoms very well. But during this transition, but still occasionally I'll get it. Night sweats increase when you drink wine or alcohol, and hot flashes.
Okay.
And disturbed sleep,
So not
interrupted
First
sleep,
of all,
affected by
remember, you
alcohol.
already have problems sleeping, and now it's actually not even restful.
Yes, so you won't have restful sleep. You know, that the sleep where you go to bed and you just have those active dreams, or you wake up feeling tired. So because you've had alcohol, it just affects your sleep. I'm speaking from personal experience.
Yeah.
So I definitely, wine consumption and alcohol consumption has gone down a lot, because I just recognize it makes me feel more tired. I don't feel clear-headed the next day, and I need to feel clear-headed. I want to wake up and go and work out. I work out in the morning. I wake up and I go for my hot yoga. Yesterday I did HIIT. I show up for myself in that time in the morning, and I went
Right.
to exercise. So yes, you will have to reevaluate your relationship with alcohol. But if you want to celebrate, they actually say it's okay for you to have more of a spirits, like gin or tonic, a little bit of whiskey, if you want to really
If you
have a
want
drink.
to, if
Your
you need to
body,
celebrate, yeah.
it's just that I think the wine
The sulfates,
thing,
maybe they
it's
do something.
just, yeah,
And we love our wine as women, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So you have to reevaluate your relationship with alcohol. I'm not saying you're going to have to give it up 100%, but you probably may not be able to drink it as much, and maybe you just change your choice of drink. And every woman is individual. That's what I always
It's
come
very,
back to.
every woman is
Yeah.
individual. Everybody is different.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
generally I see this is the case. Yes, it's true.
Because I just learned actually that within the last couple of months. I was like, well, maybe that's why I've been, the vivid dreams. You're
Yes.
waking up and
Yes,
going,
yes, yes.
what's going on?
Yeah.
The symptoms seem to be a little bit worse. So, like, I've just cut out alcohol in the vivid dreams are gone. I'm sleeping better. Yeah.
Don't you see you're sleeping better and you
Yeah,
feel
I'm,
better?
I'm not as tired.
Yeah.
The anxiety has also
Yeah.
decreased. So I thought I would,
It
yeah.
affects your mood. So like it's just all related. You're drinking, and then you come home, you can't sleep well, and then you probably will have night sweats, and especially this time of the year when it's
Oh, when
warmer.
it's really hot,
Yeah.
yeah.
January, February, March. And then you wake up and you haven't slept well, so it's affecting your mood, it's affecting your focus, it's affecting how you show up, it's affecting your recovery. Your recovery time is affected generally because
Everything, yeah.
you're getting older and your hormone support is different. So yeah, it's tough. I think it's just time to reevaluate your relationship. This is what I say.
Basically with everything, with food,
Everything.
with movement,
So anyway, we
with...
talked about, I haven't
Yeah.
finished my list of the things. So we talked about food, we talked about exercise. Supplementation is also very important. And what I want to say for women is, when you start hearing about supplements on some WhatsApp group, don't just run and buy all the supplements. You need to go and find out what are the gaps you need to fill for your body. Because supplements is supposed to supplement nutrition. Okay?
Yes.
So food is always the best way to get the nutrients, antioxidants, anything that you need. And then where you have gaps, then you get the supplements. Okay? And they have ways you can test. You can go to the doctor, you can go to a pharmacy, they have the vitamin deficiency test. Go find out your deficiencies. Okay? And then another good thing to supplement is plant estrogens, because our estrogen is going down. So I always say a big one is flaxseed. You just crush some flaxseed, about 50%, the kernels, and then you put it in the fridge, and then you add it to your food. You're giving yourself some plant estrogen.
Okay.
So it's a good way for you to kind of optimize your nutrition and your hormonal health. Omega fatty acids are good for your heart health, also for just generally your enzymes in your body. So there are certain vitamins are important. Vitamin D, omega, a good multivitamin. And as I say, you can look into herbs and what's it called? I can't think of the word right now. This happens sometimes. But anyway, other type of herbal supplements.
Herbal supplements.
And one that I discovered, I'm going to say it. I don't know if you're going to air it, but for women who are struggling with hot flashes, because somebody told me about Evanova, right? I don't really get hot flashes anymore because I'm on hormone replacement therapy. But if you're not on hormone replacement therapy, you might want to look into Evanova. It comes from India. It's I think it's supposed to be a supplement that really helps with hot flashes. I know one woman who told me she's had success. I mentioned it to her. I saw her recently and she was like, oh my God, the Evanova is working. And this was told to me by a friend who I went to high school with, that she used it and her cousin used it. So there are some things that can help. Black cohosh is supposed to also help with hot flashes.
Hot flashes.
Yeah. So
But again,
supplementation is a big topic. It's
Yeah.
a big. I know I need to do a bit more education around this on the platform, and I'm looking forward to sharing that information with women. But it's a big area because there's also a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of people just being told, buy this supplement, buy that supplement, and it.
Yeah, because
sometimes it's
usually,
not-
and again, supplementation, because women will go buy a whole lot of, actually the most popular, not probably here, but like in the US, multivitamin, it
Yeah.
has everything.
Yeah.
But I may not need everything.
Yeah.
So my rule of thumb is I go for tests, I do
Yeah.
blood work,
Yeah.
and I see what's
Yeah.
missing. So in my regular physical, there are some things I think they should start including for women, like vitamin D is never
Yes.
included. You have
Yeah.
to put that in as extra.
Yeah.
Things like B12 is not
Yeah.
included. You have to add that in.
Yeah.
And then I see where I am. And I think for me, because I'm anemic, like I have to have my iron checked regularly.
Yeah.
So I make sure that those other things are included. Amina.
And that's interesting that you say that. I'm going to say this because I know where you go for your tests. I go the same place, right? Colombia, Africa,
Yes.
which we love. They have a great, I'm just going to say it for women. It's a very affordable test. You can go and check everything.
Everything.
And if you hit 40, you hit 45, you hit 50. You could do it every year, but I think you could do it every few years if you want. It's important. You need to kind of look at your numbers. You need to look at your health. You can look, and your thyroid is another
And
big
your
one.
thyroid, yes.
Because a lot of the symptoms of thyroid deficiency actually mimic perimenopausal symptoms. So finding out whether it's a thyroid, whether it's perimenopause, that's even a big message for women in their 30s.
Yes,
Because
even for women in their 30s.
Yeah, the thyroid health.
And the reason I like Colombia, it's one of the most exhaustive ones
Yes.
I have seen.
Yes.
I was talking to Stephanie, who is my personal trainer. And she was telling me she's seen so many of them that are not even checking calcium for women, because we need to check
Yeah.
those things, and again, know your body. So like I know I need D added in. I usually have magnesium also checked.
Magnesium is huge for women.
Yes, and what we don't realize, even if I'm vitamin D deficient,
Yeah.
and I go on a vitamin D supplement, it needs magnesium
Yes.
in order to absorb,
And vitamin K as well.
and vitamin K. So you need to get, again, advocating and knowing your body.
Yeah.
Amina, this was amazing. It was so insightful. We need to do more of this. And I know
Yes, we have so much more we could talk
so
about.
much more we can talk about. Again, remind women and men, because men need to know these things
They
too.
absolutely do.
As our partners, our brothers, our spouses, where they can find you.
Fab-u-las Living, FAB-U-LAS Living. Instagram, Facebook, and my personal is Mimi Fabulous, MIMI.fabulous. Yeah, come on out. I think there's a lot of opportunity for continued conversations, more education. Getting the medical fraternity also as part of this conversation is a big one for me this year,
Yep.
because I think we need to get
We need
the
to get
doctors
them
talking,
involved and talking.
and helping women. And I've seen some doctors are coming up and giving talks, and I always have bring a doctor along when I do one of my events. I have had several doctors or one doctor, because I think it's important also they need to, the education was not there. They also need to kind of come up to speed
with
with the
what's
research
going
and
on.
data and what's happening and how to frame the conversation for women. So, and for men also, because as you said, and for, companies.
Yes, even organizations, companies, we need to know what's going on with our most productive workforce. Yes.
Yes, our talent.
Our talent.
Our women in
it's
the
actually
40s
that
and
it's
50s.
talent, yes.
Yes. Yes. How can we support them through this transition?
So important. So thank you so much, and for being brave, having the courage to actually go out there, not just research for yourself and the people close to you, for choosing to share and
you.
educate all of us so we are not suffering and struggling alone. I do feel I started paying more attention when I met you. So
Yeah.
thank you.
I'm
And
glad to hear that.
it has improved my relationships, it's improved my self-awareness, how I take care of myself, and how I show up for
Yeah.
myself
Yeah.
and others.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I hope you enjoyed the conversation, learned something. Whew, women, we need to start talking to each other, with each other, learning about our own bodies and advocating for our own health. If you're going through this season of change, because it's a season, and you're feeling a little bit, alone, nowhere to go, you can always reach out to Amina on her platforms. You can comment in this podcast. Tell us what you want to hear more, and I'm sure Amina will be glad to come back and share. Subscribe so we can keep having these conversations. Thank you so much for listening and for watching. Be limitless.